It's really important that we continue to build out the experiences to be much more differentiated, much more immersive, but we've also designed our hardware to be for an arcade and not for the consumer market.
Dan O'Brien, president of HTC Americas. Is that the right title?
Yeah, that's accurate.
That's a big title.
It sounds impressive.
It is. I think it is impressive.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having us here and
it's
all
your
the
fucking
support
booth. You paid for it.
Well, thank you to the IAAPA team, for embracing us and allowing us to be part of the show, because this is a newer space for a brand like HTC, to get involved in.
And let's start there. And so I want to thank you on behalf of the industry, if I may, for being here. And last year you brought a big team to IAAPA and walked around and supported, I don't know, 9 or 10 or 11 companies that were using HTC technology in their solutions. And then, I don't know, 4 months ago, it's like, hey, we want to exhibit this year at IAAPA. And that's a major step. Like, no other headset manufacturers here. No one's ever come. No one's even asked that I know of. And so talk a little bit about why did you decide to take the next step and actually exhibit at the show?
Last year was so great, and so many learnings came from it. And just learning much more about the problems that the industry is facing, the things that we can solve for. In the early days of the Vive business, we started with a lot of location-based experiences in APAC and China, where they had these, gaming. Everybody did their gaming in a VR arcade, and that taught us a ton about what we needed to do for different types of arcade experiences, and those were scaled experiences in the early days, 2016, 2017. And then, Western Europe and the United States really started to push immersive experiences inside of arcades and location-based environments, and we didn't know anything. All we knew was at the time that there was headsets going out. Operators were buying consumer-level licenses, consumer-level warranties, and then going in and doing arcades. And we were like, okay, this is vulnerable as an industry for everybody else, for the operator, for the system integrator, for the content team. And we were like, okay, we can solve this. So we started working on licensing, first. Licensing for the hardware, licensing for, we created the Vive Port, arcade solution, so that an operator could get access to content and the developer would be able to make money, and we would be able to actually allow an operator to make money doing an arcade solution. So that was our first foray into it, and now it's just growing.
It's exploding, and I just want to say that. So I've been around this industry a little while, and in the LAN gaming world, back in the 90s, these LAN gaming centers were set up to do PC gaming for people who didn't have PCs or high-speed internet, which was a challenge at the time. And all of that went unlicensed for decades. Yeah. Because nobody stepped up to figure out how to license the content and get it into the hands of the operator so they could run a business. And so the fact that you guys were willing, you saw that initially and were willing to step outside of, your core competency, probably, like, all right, we know this is a problem, how do you solve it, it was a huge deal. So thank you.
I mean, our core competency as a company was making hardware, right? We were making smartphones for years, and we knew one-to-one, whether it was B2C or B2B2C, but this was really a new space for us. I think what made us differentiated was we're really good at making hardware that human beings will be abusive to. And then going, okay, great, we can solve these problems. And I think too, last year we learned over the couple of years of coming here and observing partners and just listening to them. We created things like accessories that you could actually create, guns and other peripherals, and started making our products to actually have an ecosystem that you could increase the different types of experiences you could have at an operator, so that you were, giving an experience that you couldn't have at home. And that was really important.
And so we're going to talk about that in a second, but how surprised were you by how much abuse your stuff gets in this space?
Not that surprised. We have reliability labs that used to pick up smartphones to like 9 feet and then drop them. And then we took our VR headsets and all the accessories and controllers and everything else, and we put them in the same damn machine and we dropped them. And we just wanted to see like how this was going. So we actually designed products so that they can be abused. I think what we did learn though was some weaknesses in things like cables and other areas where that became a weakness, but those weren't things that we were necessarily making first party. But the things that we were making first party, we kind of designed a lot of our headsets like an F1 car. You know, like when you see a car like that hit at speed, it is designed to distribute, you know, energy to protect the inner, you know, the insides. And so you can pretty easily put the car back together from a chassis that is actually safe. So we actually have a lot of experience with that. The first one we did, I think, was Dreamscape, or somebody else did this, and we went and watched it, and I watched like two 11-year-olds take their headsets off and just drop them right to the ground, and I went, and those headsets are gone. And you know, it was a lot of learnings, but you know, it was we're always learning how we can make the solution better, how we can make it more reliable. Because the more you're up and running as a company and the more you're making money, the better off you are, the better off we are.
Yeah. And ultimately this is, you know, it's and I guess all the VR markets are emergent and small, and this is, you know, starting out as a small market and it's growing, but you know, you walk around the show and you see how much, you know, possibility is here.
Oh my goodness, it's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. I love the variety of experiences, you know, from, you know, people running, you know, stationary running, right? Being able to have that locomotion, have that agency and those types of experiences. Everything from, you know, artistic experiences to, you know, fighting for your life, right? But when you are the superhero and you're no longer, you know, observing it from a 2D perspective, your experience is way more visceral, and it is a much more entertaining experience. Also pretty thrilling. Right?
Yeah, and we all love watching anyone's first VR experience is like, it never gets old, right?
It never gets, the smile is genuine, and you cannot stop it from happening.
And so let's talk a little bit about the consumer market, right? So consumer VR, you know, is it going to happen? Is it a fad? Like we've been hearing that for decades. You know, this big technology company that we wear their shit is going to come out with a new headset out called, we can say it, we can say Apple, right?
Right, yeah, sure.
So Apple's moving into the market in early next year.
They buy a lot of our headsets.
And so what do you think is going to happen? Because operators, you know, I was around in the 90s with games, and console games just kind of ate the lunch of the video arcade. Video arcades pivoted to redemption games, and now they've become kind of kiddie casinos, which is horrifying to me, but that's my axe to grind. And now virtual reality is back, you know, coming in, and people are deploying virtual reality experiences. And one of the fears is, you know, people are going to get VR at home, and then why are they going to want to come out to an arcade again? Because we saw that happen with video games.
Yeah, and this was something that came up last year, right? In our talk last year, and this is going to be something that we'll continue to work on. I think, too, it's really important that we continue to build out the experiences to be much more differentiated, much more immersive. But we've also designed our hardware to be for an arcade and not for the consumer market. Not only the hardening of it and the reliability of it, but we made replaceable gaskets, easy, you know, easy to replace, you know, hygiene componentry. We made replaceable batteries so that your hardware could run for 10 hours. A consumer hardware is going to run for 10 to 15 to maybe 30 minutes. Your hardware is going to run for 14 hours a day or 12 hours a day, and that needs to be reliable, and that is what our hardware is actually hardened to actually do. We also designed it for bringing in the accessories in the ecosystem, right? And so there's now a whole new, like everything that we're doing is actually about how you guys can use it at, you know, for a long period of time, because you're based on square footage, you're based on uptime, and you're based on reliability and quality. And so those are the things that we're focused on from a hardware perspective. From a software perspective, I think that's working with the content creators, the developer teams, to actually then bring experiences that you can't do at home. being able to have a gun or an accessory that you can't use at home, that's always going to give you that much more leveled up, because at home they're focused on hand tracking, which is this is very weird still, right? With the no haptics and nothing touching your hand. When you have the ability to have that much more immersive experience, it's a way different level. And I think I look at LBE and go, you guys are going to you are the F1 series, right? This is where a lot of the innovation is going to actually occur. The investment's going to occur, and you're going to get way more immersive experiences. Eventually, it will trickle into the consumer market, but that's going to take time because this stuff's expensive.
Yeah, I think one of the things, the other thing too, is social. So I don't know if I don't even know if you know this, but I started one of the first laser tag companies, and I exhibited here, launched LaserStorm at this show in 1991. So I've been doing this a long time, and and people used to ask me about, well, everybody's going to have laser tag guns at home, and they're all going to go to the park, and they're all going to go play together, and that never happened, and I knew that was going to happen, and we had a lot of reasons that was going to happen, because trying to get 6 people to go do anything together at the same time is really hard, and then have them bring the same equipment together that's compatible. Like, you can't even, like basketball, you can kind of get a pickup basketball game going, because basketball is a basketball, but interoperability of technology is always going to be a challenge. And so I think the multiplayer stuff is key, and the free roam stuff, and you guys have really invested a lot of resources into developing the location-based system, the location software suite, and to enable these multiplayer free roam systems, and talk a little bit about that, and how did you make the decision to make that investment, because it had to be a big investment to abstract all of that that capability into a development layer for an SDK for developers to then be able to use.
Yeah, I just looking at a multi-user environment, we went out and went to the actual arcades, and we went to the locations ourselves, and we watched the absolute hurdles and pain that was happening inside of these arcades to actually activate this experience and put 30 users or 20 users into an environment, and then have a shared experience where you could have objects inside, physical objects inside the environment, and not just a free roam, but how do you actually have headsets share all that information, and then have everybody be able to interact with each other inside of that environment? The LBSS software suite, that's what we specifically designed it for. And then activation software, like our QR code activation, just so you can take one headset and have it look at, have the camera on the headset, look at the QR code on the wall, and activate the other 30 headsets in the room, and then all of your users are up and running. And that is a shared map, that is a shared experience. They're sharing the objects in the room, and everybody's immediately having a good time, because it is all about speed and reliability. So we really were focused on, for those solutions, not only the reliability of the hardware, reliability of the software, the hardening of it, and then activation, so your uptime was maximized.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me, because we've talked about this just before we came on, and a lot of technology companies have kind of Kylie would call them seagulls. They swoop in and kind of crap on you, and then they take off. And and you guys have actually committed to the work of being on the ground in the locations, talking to operators. I know, Dave Myers, who I'm a huge fan of, has put in years
countless hours,
countless years of talking to operators and listening to complaints, and he's never said, when I say, hey, I've got a customer who's got a problem, he's like, send him my number. He's never not said that. He wants to understand it, and you guys have done a great job there.
Well, I think, just being at the show, here at the show, it's all about actually hearing from operators, hearing from partners, and whether they're creative partners or operators that are actually in the field selling their solution. We want to hear more of their problems, so that we can actually solve them. We really do look at this from a brand perspective. A lot of people don't, they see a triangle. The triangle actually stands for technology, innovation, humanity. So a lot of what we do is actually to enable our partners to actually have experiences and be successful with us. It's not always about us. It's actually about our partners being highly successful. That's what our brand stands for. And we want to see everybody else here at the show. And we want to see more operators year after year after year, not only showing with us as a hardware partner and a software partner, but we want to see more immersive experiences, grow inside the industry and be successful.
So what do you see the future? Talk a little bit about roadmap. So you have this new tracker. You've talked about peripherals, and I know you can see your face. You're really excited about the self-tracking tracker, which I've implored you to use that name, and I guess you're not going to, but whatever. We're not going to let it go.
It's going to be the ultimate tracker.
The ultimate tracker. The self-tracking tracker is the best name ever for a piece of hardware.
Yeah.
What is it, and why does it matter?
Well, I think a lot of people over the years, even in 2017 was our first tracker that looked like a puck, right? Like a hockey puck with some interesting little points on it for tracking. We've always been looking at how do we open up the ecosystem to peripherals and other objects, and the industry would actually move faster than us. So we didn't want to try to control it. And so we built these tracking tools that would allow the industry to just innovate around us and give us even more ideas and more problems to solve. This is the latest tracker from us that's going to work with our all-in-one hardware, whether it's the Focus 3 or the XR Elite. And so it's going to open up for peripherals, so you'll be able to easily attach it. It's the same pogo pin style to be able to and it's got like camera accessories attachments. So it just makes it very easy for our partners, because to create a tracked object, that's a really hard problem. And so by us creating the actual tracking technology to just embed onto an object, it makes it much easier to map, deploy it, and use it. So this is our latest version of that. It's just going to make it easier for the all-in-one headsets, where everybody's moving away from the PC VR hardware into the all-in-ones. It's also going to allow for really accurate body tracking. So it gives you, out of the box, 5 points of body tracking, so you can have really accurate avatars to size, right?
So does that mean you wear one, again, are we wearing stuff on
Yeah, so you can put one,
feet?
2 on your feet, one on your back, and then on your legs. We actually have some unannounced features that are coming for this tracker, which will, bring it, right? So we will, this is actually going to allow for 11 points of body tracking accuracy. So you will have the most accurate body avatars inside the industry. Now, that's something that the LBE market can take advantage of that the home market will never take advantage of. And having the most accurate avatars to actually have the most accurate experiences, that's going to be, and it's just going to be super simple and easy for people to attach this stuff. And then, you can have your accessory, whether it's a gun or an object, and then go into those experiences. It's going to be even more immersive.
So I find it interesting because, what's happening is I'm seeing this shift in the value chain, right? Where you guys are making body tracking with wearables more accessible and less expensive, and then Vicon's coming in here and saying, yeah, but we're just going to get rid of all the wearables to remove the friction, and then we're just going to do it with markerless mocap, which is still going to be more expensive, but it shifts. So there's this shift between OpEx and CapEx that I'm seeing happening, right? Where if you have the CapEx, you can lower the OpEx, and if you don't want to, take on the CapEx, you can have higher OpEx to get a similar type of experience. Seems to be what I'm hearing it's going to play out, which I think is interesting because, there's lots of price points and lots of different types of locations with lots of different budgets and different types of experiences and if VR is going to kind of really penetrate the industry, the LBE industry, you got to be able to hit all those different entry points and vectors.
Yep.
And those are going to require different types of solutions with different capabilities and different price points.
I've yet to meet a single operator that said, can you help lower the costs of doing this type of tracking, lower the costs of being able to have this type of experience. In so many ways, so many of the problems that we get asked to solve is, hey, we want to bring the cost down on these different things. And a lot of our partners, they just embrace it, right? And the lower your CapEx investment is to actually opening up a new location, and your speed to actual revenue, that's only going to bring your costs down and only bring your top line revenue, your gross revenues up. So ultimately, we are trying to remove those costs, but we're also trying to do it in a way that it just enables our partners to be more efficient, more effective.
Last question about So the Vive Focus 3 launched, I think I got mine in like March of 21,
Yeah.
kind of like during the pandemic. It's now, and going into, it's almost 3 years. And I think, a lot of the fear has been this stuff's getting obsoleted by the manufacturers too fast for us to, recoup the CapEx. And you guys haven't done that with the Focus 3, and I'm glad, and it's still state of the art. So it doesn't feel like the refresh cycle is as bad as it is in a lot of consumer electronics. How do you view when you look at the roadmap, like what's the obsolescence cycle that you think is ideal for on the headset side?
That's a great question. I think, just looking at overall, like, we actually understand the B2B side. We understand whether they're enterprise or commercial customers, could be an oil and gas company, or if they're an LBE market, they don't want to have that churn, right? So we want to give people a lot of confidence. Our life cycle, typical life cycle, is a 3 to 4. Our original headset went for 6 years, the original Vive. We will keep the Focus 3 in market for the foreseeable future. We're not going to take that out. We are going to introduce new headsets like the Vive XR Elite, but that's less robust. We're being asked to create, what's also really interesting too is we do make our hardware in a way that you can grow the experience over time. So developing the original chassis of like the Focus 3, a year and a half later, 2 years later, you can add the addition of eye tracking or add facial tracking. And then here's new accessories and new peripherals. So we really kind of design specifically so that you can grow the experience over time and you're not just being burdened year after year after year. So if you do want eye tracking, you can add it. Great. If you don't ever want to use it, okay, that's fine too. But we do have a longer life cycle. We are committed to keeping our products around. Even when a product goes end of life, it will be supported for no less than 2 years after it's been end of life. So from maintenance, support, repairs, equipment, replacements, you can have confidence that even when a product is done selling commercially, your product will be supported for at least 2 years after you've already deployed it into your product, into your operators and things of that nature. But we will continue to innovate, and probably, every couple of years you will see a new headset from us, but you'll see bigger innovation jumps and not just these little increments that are kind of like, okay, well, that's not enough for me to make another purchase decision. Like, make a bigger impactful jump, bring a lot more innovation, make a difference.
Yeah, cool. I can't wait to see what's next.
Thanks.
Dan, thanks for being here, man. And thanks for everything you guys are doing, your whole team. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.